All right. So it's really great if we can free up some of our cognitive capacity to do other things. Like that can be really helpful to us in life. But there are some problems with automaticity. One is when we display what's called a capture error. So we've got a well practiced but unintended action that takes over when it shares the initial sequence elements with a more familiar action. So if you've overlearned something, it may take over when you're in a circumstance that demands a different behavior that sort of starts off the same way as the well learned behavior. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're driving home and you go, okay, my gas tank's getting kind of low. I need to remember to stop on my way home and get gas. And then you find yourself on your driveway. You're like, wait a second, I was going to stop and get gas. Why didn't I stop and get gas? I mean, told myself I am the queen of doing this. I start telling myself at like half a tank, don't forget to stop and get gas because I know I display this capture error so often where I just the overlearned behavior of driving home is so much more powerful, and as soon as I start driving, it's like I start thinking other thoughts like I always do. I start, dividing my attention away from the one thing I'm doing, and then I immediately forget that I was going to stop and get gas. And I'll go days where I say again, "Oh gosh, look at this. Okay, it's getting serious now. I've got to stop and get gas." And it's like, "No, I'm at home again. What happened?" I don't know why it is that I can never think to stop on my way to work. I always think of it on my way home, which is where I think it's that old saying where the horse is smelling the barn, right? So it's trying to just get back to the barn really fast. I think that's, maybe I should leave earlier and I don't want to go to work anyway kind of mentality, and why not stop at the gas station? But I don't know. I don't think I want to go to work with station smell on my hands. So I don't know. I guess wash them. I don't know why I can't do it the reverse, but all I can tell you is I display that capture error a lot where I just continuously forget to alter the overlearned behavior enough to just stop and get gas, right? And I pass like three gas stations on my way home. Honestly, there's no excuse for it. Except for I just daydream. Just start thinking something else. There are data driven errors where external events can cause the inappropriate activation of a schema. We haven't really talked about schemas yet in this class, but those are like mental frameworks of how things should go in this context, right? So external events can cause the activation of a schema and force us to display unwanted behaviors. So, for example, accidentally typing what you just heard. That's a good example of a data-driven error, right? So you're in the midst of typing what you're thinking because you're writing a paper for class or whatever, and then somebody speaks to you and you accidentally type what they said to you. Or maybe you're listening to a podcast, which I don't know how people listen to a podcast while writing a paper. Those are the exact same modality. How do you not just type what's in the podcast? I don't get that at all. But people do it. So you might just type what you just heard, right? Those are data driven errors where, something external that is not related to what you're trying to do causes you to behave in a way that you weren't expecting to do. Associative activation errors are when you have an intention to do or say something, and that activates a strongly related but inappropriate schema. So here I have a little video for us, and if you've ever seen Friends, you might recognize what's going to happen in this one. I'll put this into the playlist so you can actually witness it happen, but the key thing is Ross is getting married and he says Rachel's name at the wedding, right? Because that kind of activation error happened. He had intended to say Emily, but he has such a close association with getting married, and because he was always in love with Rachel, right? And so he has such a close association between getting married and wanting it to be Rachel that he had that activation error occur. So you can see that in my playlist. The loss of activation error is when you have an intention to do something, but you forget what that intention was, or you remember that you had an intention, but you can't remember what the intention was. So this is called a loss of activation. Like I said to myself, I'm going to go get, oh, this is my favorite. Actually, I'm not going to go anywhere. This I think you'll completely relate to. I am going to pick up my phone and look something up. Oh, look, there's a notification. I'm going to look at the notification first. Go through a series of things, see all the notifications, set my phone down. Whatever had triggered me to pick it up in the first place is still present. Now that I've put my phone down, I look up and I'm like, oh, dang it. I forgot to look up what I was going to check, what I was going to Google on my phone, right? That's a loss of activation. Like I started to do something and I forgot what I was doing. So I went back to normal. Um, that's a loss of activation. I had an activation, look something up, got distracted, forgot what I was doing. My attention fell off of the task at hand, and next thing you know, I can't remember why my phone's in my hand. Okay, I have a little video that'll illustrate that too. I just want to say it's in my playlist. I know we're not supposed to talk about Bill Cosby anymore. He's supposed to be erased, but I'm sorry. He has a really good little bit here. It's very brief, that completely relates to loss of activation. So I apologize. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to. All right, and then description error. This is when the desired action is carried out, but with the wrong object. So, examples that you might have experienced would be things like maybe you made yourself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and you started, if you're like me and you keep your peanut butter in the cupboard and you keep your jelly in the refrigerator, you may have started to put them back into the wrong places. So you've got your peanut butter in the fridge and your jelly in the pantry or in the cupboard. That kind of switching like that, that's called a description error. Like cold things should be going in the refrigerator and warm things should be going in the pantry, but you've got it backwards. You've got the wrong thing that you're doing it with. Here's a little cartoon that illustrates this. So the mom obviously is watching her stories and she means to be ironing the clothes, but she's accidentally ironing the cat because she's distracted. Her attention is being pulled by her soap operas. So these kinds of description errors are again a time when you're placing your attention on the wrong thing, right? So you had the correct intention, but you're completing it with the wrong object. All right. So how do we prioritize attention? Well, let's talk about this in the next video and we'll figure it out.